Welcome back to Thinking Critical, and we've got comic book legend John Romita Jr. here today. How you doing, John?
All right, very well. Thank you. Every time I wake up and I stop walking, it's a good day. Everything after that's icing on the cake.
Absolutely. You never promised anything, so you got to live every day to the fullest.
There you go.
So congratulations on Psychic Sam. You and Mark Millar back together again. First time crowdfunding. How's this been so far?
So far, it's going, according to them, since I'm not familiar with the whole process, it's going exceptionally well. And it started right off the bat to be that way. I'm proud of that, but I'm more proud of the product. It's you have to read it to enjoy it, but knowing the premise from the outset, I knew this was spectacular. That's Mark for you. He comes up with this a hand grenade, tosses it to me, lets me play with it, and then we toss it and let it blow up.
It's crazy. You guys have been working together for well over, 30 years now?
Yeah, we started Enemy of the State way back in the day, and it gave us an idea of how well we would work together, and he kept me in mind, and then we went to Kick-Ass, and here we are again. Third time's a charm. Let's see if this one's the big one. Although Kick-Ass, you can't complain about Kick-Ass.
No, you got 3 movies out of that one?
2 movies. I heard there's a third in process. I hope that's the case. But I don't know. Every time I ask, somebody just chuckles and said, yeah. It's in the offing, but we don't know. I don't know. There's two movies. First one was great. Second one was not so great.
It wasn't quite as good as that first one.
Yeah.
But the comic book Kick-Ass 2 is awesome.
There were several Kick-Asses and several chapters, and I was proud of all of them. They were good. Even the second iteration of Kick-Ass, the lady, I thought was well done. I was very happy with that too. So anything that's got Kick-Ass involved in it with the Hit Girl and Big Daddy, and even the ancillary characters, I thought they were all well done. Cute names and memorable names. Let's just put it that way. The MFer, I love that one.
I always loved the what was he? He was like Shithead, I think his name was, where he was like all the piles of crap from the worst men of all time put together.
That's right. And listen, ultimately, using the C word is bad enough, but for it to come out of a 12-year-old actress's mouth shocked a lot of people. It got a lot of attention. I'll never forget that in the film, let alone in the comic book.
Absolutely. So when you first worked with Mark, I've known him behind the scenes. I don't know him probably quite as well as you do. He's got a pretty good reputation. He's done a lot of amazing things. Were you excited for that opportunity? Is he maybe not quite as cool in person as he is when he's doing interviews?
No, he's a sweetheart, and he's comical and he's brilliant, and he has a great imagination. And combined, he comes up with what he has come up with. You do one thing well once. You're lucky. You do it about 50 times, and it's on purpose. He knows what he's doing, and his stuff is great. And the premise of this is a testament to that. I met him in person when we first were working together. We hit it off great, and he's that kind of a guy. Unless you're an asshole, then he'll tell you.
I like his sense of humor. He's able to make fun of himself, which yes. I think every good person should be able to do that.
I agree, and it's easy for me. I have no problem making fun of myself if it's there. It's self-deprecating humor is you're trying to make fun of yourself. Mine is obvious.
So with Psychic Sam, when he first approached you on this one, were you just like, it doesn't matter what it is, or, whoa, this is the project I've been looking for?
A little bit of both. I called him, I emailed him and said, actually, emailed him several times. I said, I have some ideas I'd love to bounce off you. Let's do something. As simple as that. And he said, let me get back to you. I have an idea. And then we went back and forth via email. And he said, I want you to read this. It's a short premise. And as soon as I read it, I said, this is it. I want to do it. This is fantastic. And it lends itself to being drawn out and then filmed. It is a film. And I don't know any other way of putting it, but it's a challenge to live up to that quality of a premise. And he challenges me whenever we work together. And I got a chance to work with Klaus Janson again and Bill Crabtree. So there's 4 artists on this. I just wrote that this morning back to Mark in the middle of the night. He saw some recent colored pages from Bill Crabtree and said, these are fantastic. I said, that's what you get when you have 4 artists. And that's the case. Well, all 4 of us are turning this into a film. I agree completely.
And there are plans for that in the future, correct?
Yes. And we have a producer, and that's all I can give you as far as names go, Ivanovich. And he's an experienced producer and knows what he wants. And let him go with it. And as long as he puts a middle-aged New York City boy in the film somehow, I'll be happy.
So this definitely has some undertones, or, it's got a little bit of a Punisher feel to it. I
Sure.
imagine that's one of the reasons why you're the perfect artist.
A little bit of that. It's a wink and a nudge from Mark, but the premise is separate from the Punisher, because the revenge end of it is not really a part of it. The Punisher basically was just a revenger like Batman was, but the Punisher was a different type of character at that time, brand new, fantastic idea. This is a take on. It's not a take on Revenger. It's no revenge involved. This is just a brilliant take with similarities of the size and the scope of the character visually.
So he's going to be going through New York City and
No, this is out in Los Angeles.
taking names.
This is in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Yeah, and he's an innocent mind. He's just a truck driver that happens to get premonitions of crimes that are about to happen. And what do you do if you know there's a murder that's coming up? Do you murder that person in advance? And that's the challenge. It's a brilliantly devised premise, and then we play it out the way it should be. I'm very proud of the pacing and the storytelling. But when you're handed, I give it an analogy of a football player gets handed the football on the 1 yard line, and there's a wide opening. The offensive line has opened the hole up, and you just need to step across the goal line. That's pretty much what Mark handed to me. You have to hold on to the ball, though. You can't fumble.
So I'm assuming there's going to be, and I've seen some of the pages, I'll be honest about that, actually seen basically the first issue there, but there's going to be lots of violence, lots of gore, and this guy is not a superhero. He's going to take it.
Yes, that's the case, which I love, because that's part of reality. And I love adding reality to fantasy. But you cannot have the damage that's he's involved in and not get some bumps and bruises. But he hands out some bumps and bruises. It's pretty good. And that's the kind of stuff I love. And then to make it real, you have to show reality in some way, shape, or form. And we've got it. We've got it there. And there's some characters that look real, and I'm very happy with the results. And Klaus and Bill Crabtree, especially Klaus. Klaus and I go back a million years. Klaus is a brilliant artist before he's an ink artist. And he's a legend. And that in and of itself allows this to be beautiful stuff. And then Crabtree does the same thing. So this is outstanding stuff. And you said you've seen it. I'm very proud of the artwork. Very, very proud. And there's 2 more 50 pages coming up.
And it fits right into all your strengths as an artist. You're a wonderful visual storyteller, but you're also really great at those moments where the hero is eating it. He's not in the best straits, and he has to kind of overcome the odds, and you've got a lot of gore and stuff in there, and it falls right into your wheelhouse just as an artist.
I can't disagree with you. That's because that's the fun part for me, is that making it as close to reality as possible. And then to make sure that it looks real, you sometimes have to do things that you've seen before, or you can imagine what they look like. But not that I've slaughtered anybody lately, but it's the same thing when I did Kick-Ass. You have to imagine and at least act it out to a certain extent. But my father took us to boxing matches when we were kids. I saw what boxing was like, taught us how to box when we were kids. I've been in fights. I know what it's like to get hit. I know the damage that's been done. So that's the fun part, is adding that bit of reality to it. And this is an extreme bit of reality, but it's great stuff. Just the whole pacing of it and the way it plays out with the timing. And again, what would you do if you knew somebody was going to get slaughtered in a week? Would you go chase after the guy that you know is the killer? Once you find out that that's the killer, what would you do? It's a great question. And that's the whole story in and of itself. And it goes on, and I can't give away any of the cliffhangers, but there's a couple in here that'll knock you on your ass.
And I think that's probably the best part about Mark, still being involved in comic books, which he does not have to do. I don't think people realize just how lucrative his Netflix deal is. His profession now is a Netflix executive. He's not really full-time on comic books, but he puts so much time into it. And he's like the best of both worlds, where he's still, you get that 90s even early 2000s visceral action in it. But, comic books have evolved over time. We're 25 years, into this century, and there's a lot more, exposition and talking, and he's able to incorporate that, but still keep up the action at a fervent pace within the book.
He's a cinephile, and this is a stop action film that I can't call it a comic book. It's a graphic series, graphic novel series, however way you want to phrase it. Comic book is an undercutting of what it is. This is a stop action film. It's a storyboard right off the bat, and it was a film from the get-go. And so you say Mark doesn't have to do comics. I can't call it a comic in my own right, in my own mind. This is a film, a stop action film.
Very, very cool stuff. And now, obviously, you and Mark, we've talked about this and worked together, a lot in the past, and we saw great success with Kick-Ass and Hit Girl, two just dynamite characters, got a lot of history in comic books, got the big movies and stuff. Does this kind of live up or hold up to that in your mind?
Oh, yes. The only difference was Kick-Ass was a little bit more ingenious in that the timing of it, in other words, I hadn't done a creator-owned with this kind of violence before. This set a precedent with violence and action and adult material. It stretched the boundaries, and it was successful not because of that, but that helped. So this is a little bit following in that vein. That's a Mark Millar vein. But I could say this follows in the quality of Kick-Ass, but it's not as innovative as Kick-Ass was because, as I said, the violence in Kick-Ass was way over the top, and this is right there with it.
And Kick-Ass actually lend itself to a lot of pretty good comedy. Like, it's not a comedy book, but there are some fantastic one-liners and little setup beats that play off in pretty comedic moments. Psychic Sam doesn't quite play to that comedic element because you don't have a 14-year-old boy and like a 9-year-old girl kind of playing out as superheroes.
But Sam's got a friend who's a wise ass that plays some of the comedic roles. And the reason there's comedy in Kick-Ass is because this was Mark's childhood. He wanted to be a superhero, so he just played himself out in that book, so to speak. That's why it was funny, and I laugh at it because I know he's the one that told me all about that. With Psychic Sam, there's some funny moments in it because of his friend being a wise ass, and that's good. Just enough. No, there's not enough. There's comedy, but remember, this is a serious premise. That what it does to Sam, the torturing of what it does to him, the torturing of him, not knowing if he's doing the right thing or not, is pretty powerful. It's palpable.
So working with Mark, starting out with Wolverine, then doing your creator-owned stuff with multiple volumes of Kick-Ass, Hit Girl, and now going into the Psychic Sam, what has changed over the years? Is Mark a different kind of creator? Are you a different type of creator as your dynamic changed? Or is it basically the smooth sailing like it always was?
I think that both of us have progressed in the proper amount of time and the proper process. I got better just out of being an artist. Listen, if you do something 12 hours a day for almost 50 years and you don't improve, well, first of all, you wouldn't have reached the amount of time in the business. That's the first thing. But if you haven't improved in that amount of time, then there's something wrong. Mark has improved as well as I have. I'd like to say I'm more in control of the storytelling than I was when I was younger, because I've learned a lot, watched a lot of films, and I've been through the ringer with the comics industry. And my favorite part of what I do is the storytelling, because I've always wanted to be a director in a film. I always wanted to direct a film, and this is a miniature version of it. And I think the progress I've made has been because of the amount of experience I've had, and the same with Mark. And then, of course, with him being a cinephile and a very well-read young man, I call him, you have to learn from all of the above. And when you do compact it into a product, it shows. So I think the both of us have improved just because of experience.
It definitely works out that way. Now, you say you want to be a director, but you have a directing credit in a movie called Kick-Ass, right?
Yeah, that was a brief. The animated bit, yes, that's true. So I can't say I haven't done it, but really? I would love to grab a director of photography and do a film. And listen, any creator in the comics business basically is a director in a film. And I'll stand on a high mountain and say that, the artists especially, but it depends on the storytellers. Frank Miller was a storyteller from way back when, as I was when we started. John Byrne, that kind of guy. We learned the Marvel way, in quotations. And that's how you learn to tell a story. And that's how you direct a film. The artists, unfortunately, that have only worked from scripts don't have that advantage that we did. And I think that's I feel privileged that we were given that when we first started. I say we, the guys of my age and the genre, that were able to work on plots and learn to tell a story. I'm more proud of my storytelling than the art. And the art is holding up. I don't know how long it'll last, but the storytelling, as long as I have my faculties, the storytelling is going to be there, and I'm very proud of it.
I've noticed that about comic books, and I imagine you being a professional artist have noticed it even more extremely than I have, that right now we have some amazing illustrators,
Sure.
people that are capable of creating some of the best illustrations you've ever seen. But it feels like we don't have a lot of visual storytellers anymore, to where you're just kind of seeing static images rather than kind of going through the comic book and really seeing that motion in your head.
I don't know how true that is, only because the readers demand more story than they do visual amazement. In other words, the pinup era was long gone. However, you have to get some spectacular pinups somewhere, and they managed to put it in. The artists, and they're international. They're from all over Europe, all over the world now, and that's the great thing about the business. They have to learn to tell a story, and some of them don't, but they're learning. I wasn't that good a storyteller when I first started either. It's an acquired talent. It's an acquired ability, and they are good artists. It's more difficult to learn how to tell a story than it is to be an artist, as far as I'm concerned. But being a decent artist, the storytelling makes you a better artist because it makes it clearer what you're looking at. I honestly, I don't want to comment about the present day young group of artists, but they have to learn to tell stories better, because looking through books, sometimes it's hard to tell where I am. But the art is beautiful, and they'll learn. They will learn. And this is what I said before about the writers giving a tight script. It's handed to the artists, and it's a writer giving you the script, not an artist giving you the script. And nothing wrong with some of the ideas that's in the minds of writers. Mark Millar's a visual writer. He knows what he likes, and never tells me what to do. He asks me, how about we try this? And it's very little amount of that. And Frank Miller and those guys of that genre that knew how to tell a story before they became writers. I think it does damage to an artist now when he's not given the ability to run on himself, run on his own, on herself, on their own wiles. When a writer hands everything to you on a silver platter, and it's a tome, a 22-page story is 100 pages.
Breaks down all the panels and how they're supposed to go, and
you are truly hamstrung and limited. And I would tell the writer, I'm sorry, I can't go by this. I've got to go by my way, and I won't lose what you had in mind. But that's because I've been doing it long enough to have that experience. A lot of artists don't have that ability. They will get that ability if they're given the chance. I hope it happens that storytelling becomes, in their minds, preeminent and not the art, because they're artists. They are great artists already. There's so many of them. The guy Pepe Larraz on Spider-Man is fantastic, stylized, beautiful work. Great guy. And he talks, and he and I, and when we were over in Europe visiting, he wanted to talk storytelling. I think that's fantastic. And I belie any artist not to want to be a better storyteller. All of us want to be that way because we want to direct films, basically.
So it sounds like you give a lot of that credit for your ability to tell stories visually from the Marvel method, being in there on the ground level of the foundational elements of, here's a general outline, you go and cook, and then I'll add the words later. Now, how much do you credit to your father? Obviously, you grew up in the shadow of a living legend himself at the time, John Romita Sr. Great work, legendary Spider-Man artist. I imagine he might have played a little bit into it.
Yeah, but it wasn't through comics. It was through film. When we were kids, if there was a rainy or a snowy day and we couldn't do something outside, we'd go see a film, or we would sit inside and watch an old movie. And he would, with me at least, my brother didn't pay as much attention as I did. He would talk about what was coming. He says, watch this scene. Watch what Bogart does in this next scene. Watch what happens. Watch with the rain. It's Philip Marlowe's got the rain dripping off of his hat. He says, look at that. It rains on the good guys in films too. Little things that coalesced as I got older. But we would talk about film and film noir and moody stuff. And there was always one part of a film that he would point to and say, watch this and watch how this comes out and tell me how you think that makes sense. That kind of framing of the conversation. And the two of us would sit there, and I would sit there with my mouth hanging open that I had seen the film twice before, never paid attention to that little bit. Even films as boring as 12 Angry Men about a jury, just the angles and the shots and the mood and the storytelling of a quiet film, that kind of stuff, that was fun. And that, when I learned how it connected to comics, because when I started watching what he was doing, he says, come here, kid, let me show you something. And he said, remember that scene we were watching and on the waterfront? Look at this character. Watch what he's going to do. We're going to do that in this kind of scene. And I said, wow, we can do that in comics. And but I didn't realize that until I got into the business and learned that I had to do basically filmmaking. And then there would be an experienced artist or a writer or an editor that would ask for more establishment. Jim Shooter said, I want to know where we are every 2 pages. And a testament to Jim Shooter, he said it to a room full of artists and said, you can't do pinups on every page. You'll lose the reader. And he was 100% correct. And considering what I had heard from Romita Sr. about storytelling, and then learning what I learned in college about design, everything coalesced. And in my limited brain capacity, I formulated the storytelling formula, and I've been developing it since, and I have more fun with it than I do the artwork, because I'll pass up a money shot. I was talking to Scott Hanna yesterday. There's the writer, Joe Kelly, on the latest issue of Spider-Man, asked us for some crazy crowded scenario on Columbus Circle in Manhattan. You can't hide from that, but you can economize. And there's ways of doing things. And Scott said, I don't know how we did it. He says, I don't know how we did it, but we managed. He says, that's good storytelling, is that you don't have to throw a billion characters into it, but you can't do a money shot and expect the storytelling to be Jake. You have to do a little bit of both. You have to sacrifice, and you have to also throw the dynamic in there. It's a nice combination of both. But I learned from my father, and I also learned from the business, in the business.
And your father obviously is a legendary Spider-Man artist. You know, I still remember the Spider-Man No More cover.
Yeah.
I believe he did, the wedding issue and all that stuff.
Yes.
Fantastic style. Very great artist. Anybody can learn from him. You have a little bit of John Romita Sr. in your art, but you have a very distinctive style, and it's really been distinctive for 50 years. Like, you can go back to the beginning, and obviously your style has changed over the years, but you can tell that that's John Romita Jr.
But I never consciously tried to make a style out of myself. I wanted to be as good as the people before me. In my head, it was Romita Sr. and Kirby and Buscema. By the time it got down to my fingers, unfortunately, it was me. And then I tried little adjustments. I tried to make things more three-dimensional by making it boxier, because Jack Kirby told me, make sure you can see both sides. It's not just a two-dimensional piece of artwork. Make it a cube. And I remember him saying that and me taking it too literally. And I went through a boxy stage. And then I was told, you got to go easy on that. I think it was Romita Sr. or even some readers. But I learned how to make things more solid and dense and three-dimensional. So that was a style attempt, a style adjustment. But I was never good enough, and I probably still am not good enough to change my style or adjust a style or make a style. It's whatever came out on time. I've said it unnecessarily. I've said it too many times that it's deadline style. Whatever comes out on time and makes the paycheck, I'm happy with it,
so
and that's my style.
Jack Kirby, Buscema, throw away your eraser and keep moving.
That's a true story. But that was more in an effort to say your first impression generally is the better impression. And it didn't necessarily mean the artwork per se. They meant the scene, the storytelling, and the artwork. And ended up being very, very vital to me picking up speed. And even to the point where Jack Kirby said, what do you use to sharpen your pencils? I said, I use a sharpener, a pencil. She says, get a mechanical pencil, you little dick.
You wasted time. That's at least
He said, you think
half a
it's,
day.
oh, well, maybe it was December. Oh, I forgot. But they both joked about the fact you think that's a couple of seconds and unimportant. He says, count up a couple of seconds over the course of a day and the course of a 5-year period. Think about it. You don't have to sharpen a mechanical pencil.
So is that why you're able to do basically a 2 book a month schedule for years? Like a lot of people, even back then, have trouble keeping up with a book a month, and you were pushing out 2 a month for decades.
They were also simpler storylines, plots back then. They were simpler. There was more spectacular than there was story density. Now, listen, I've been late recently because of the amount of work that goes into each story. But when it was a little simpler in the storylines, I think I was faster than the average guy. I can still do 2 books a month, but it has to be economized to a point where I can get 7 to 10 pages done a week, and at least, and then we could talk about it. But again, there's a certain amount of greed involved in it. I remember one of the older guys used to say, if you ever want to get any faster, buy a car you can't afford. Put yourself in hock. You'll be amazed how fast you are.
Make it a necessity.
There you go. That's it.
So at what point did you feel like you really, stepped out of your father's shadow and became John Romita Jr. legend in his own right? Was there a certain run or a point in comic books?
No, never felt that way. But that's self-imposed. The amount of blowback I got because I was trying to get into the business with my father's name, that's a legendary story. The people that said the things that they said aren't important anymore. Some of them have apologized, but the things that were said to me when I was a young, stupid young man that wanted to fight everybody, they made me work harder. So they did the right thing by me. I've never stepped out of his shadow because to me, that's what I wanted to be. And I don't mean just a cartoonist. He before he passed away, he said, I'm a better cartoonist than he was. He says, yeah, I may be a more accomplished artist as a painter overall than you are. He says, but you're a better storyteller than me. You're a better cartoonist than I ever was. That remains to be seen. But I've seen the paintings he did when he was a young man, charcoal illustrations he did. And he came out of nowhere. Nobody in his family, his heritage, nobody was an artist before him. He came from nowhere with no education, then developed an education. He was prodigal. And I could never be as good as he was, even at a young age. He did a painting when he was 19 for the Women's Army Corps. That's in the Women's Army Corps Museum in Virginia. That it was a recruiting poster for the Women's Army Corps. WAX was the acronym. And he did it when he was 19. I can't do that now. He was beyond genius.
But you never wanted to get beyond his legacy. You were okay living within.
But it gave, listen, I can liken it to LeBron James's son. LeBron James might be the greatest basketball player of all time. And as good as his son is or will be, he'll never be as good as his father. So to a certain extent, you can equate it that way and analogize it that way. I never thought I will be as good as he was, or Kirby or Buscema. Doesn't mean I can't strive to be as good as they are. Mm-hmm. And that's what compels me to get better and better, is that I always know I can get better. And I've said this a million times. His advice to me was, realize there's always somebody better than you somewhere. Bigger, better, stronger, smarter, better looking. All right, not better looking, but anyway. You get the point that there's always room for improvement, and there's always somebody better. And he would take me to galleries and museums. And he said, you know that feeling you get where you know that somebody better than you and it gets you upset? He says, I'm walking in here and look at these paintings that are from hundreds and thousands of years ago. I can't do this. He said, there's always somebody better than you. He says, once you deal with that and keep your feet on the ground, then you will get better. If you think you're great, you're never going to get great.
So what's with with interior artists? We see a lot of mainstream artists these days that get that acclaim, become legends in their own right, and they kind of just move off. I think of Alex Ross, maybe a J. Scott Campbell, where they're not doing interiors. Did you ever have that urge to maybe just become a cover artist?
Sure, a painter. Matter of fact, my wife, Kathy, insists that when I retire from deadline work that I should go back to painting. I painted in college, loved it. I haven't painted in many, many decades, and I want to do it again. I want to do it knee deep in some tropical paradise after I've retired to the south of France or something like that, and just paint on an easel. I exaggerate to clarify, but I want to paint again. Except I don't know how long it'll take me to get my abilities to use the materials again. In other words, it's an acquired. You have to learn again. I can paint, but can I use the materials? Can I use acrylics? Can I use watercolors? Can I use oils? I want to do that again. That was something Romita Sr. did that was unconsciously uneducated as an artist, and he did it anyway. No, nobody taught him to be a painter. He painted things. He painted my great-great-grandmother so perfectly accurate, and he had never painted before. This is sick. He was drawing what manhole cover to manhole cover. The man did while his friends were playing football in the street. He'd go down the block and with chunks of sheetrock from abandoned buildings, he illustrated the Empire State Building, manhole cover to manhole cover. This is kind of genius that I have always strived to be, and that's what the great thing about having a great artist as a father did for me. Not because it gave me an advantage in any way, shape, or form, except for the desire to be that good. And 50 more years. I tell you what, interview me in 50 more years and I'll tell you how good I am.
So you're going to have a second career after you're done with the interiors, and you want to get back into painting and doing covers that way.
Sure. I don't know if I'll paint covers, but I can see myself retiring from deadline work, quote unquote, and doing paintings and doing covers, illustrate covers. But it depends. It really depends. I have the desire to direct. I don't know if I'm too old or not. If I waited too long, I don't know. But I don't think there's an age limit on having a good design sense and a good storytelling sense, storyboard sense. I got my head wide open. I know what I want to do, but I don't know when I'm going to get to it.
Yeah, there's a big difference between directing a film and designing the poster, right?
Amen. And listen, it's too late for me to play second base for the Yankees. Doesn't mean I can't become a painter and do it great.
Well, if you want to come to someplace, tropical paradise, I live in the Philippines, and
all right,
it's nice, and it's a nice paced lifestyle here.
Well, listen, you find out who would like to have us there. I say us, myself, my son Joey, who's my business manager, and my wife. We would love to see the Philippines. I think we have already been in contact. Somebody's been in contact with us. If you want to facilitate that, that would be great.
Absolutely. I'll be in touch with behind the scenes. We would love to host you over here and have a good time.
Are you in Manila?
I don't live in Manila. I live out in the provinces, but we can get to anywhere.
All right.
But you don't want to go to Manila. It's not exactly the cleanest place. You want to go to one of the nice beaches like Boracay.
Hey, listen, I grew up in New York City. It wasn't exactly a storybook location either.
So you've had just a tremendous amount of longevity, 50 years in the industry, still doing sequential storytelling, deadline work as you're calling it. And I imagine there are a few keys to your success besides just your ability to meet deadlines. What's the fitness side of this? Because you're obviously still in tremendous shape. Is that something that you really believe is added to your longevity as a writer? Or I'm sorry, as an artist?
Yes, there's a certain amount of physical need. And Romita Sr. told me that when I was a kid. Don't let yourself get like me. He had a weight problem when he was younger. There's a certain amount of need for that because it sets my head straight in the morning if I exercise. And I don't need it as much as I want it. And now I can't say that. I can't say that because my body needs to exercise. There's no two ways about it. As I get older, there's a need for it. And there's a certain amount of need for vanity. And I joke about vanity being an important part of health, but it's the sole advantage of vanity. Vanity can destroy friendships and families, but it'll help you get healthy. And I joke about it that, how do I stay in shape? And I say, it's a little bit of vanity and a little bit of desire to not to get old. And actually that's part of vanity. I don't want to get old. I don't want to feel old. And it does help with the work ethic. It really does.
I've talked to a lot of artists. Obviously you're sitting down, kind of stationary, upwards of 10 to 12 hours a day. They tend to have lots of shoulder issues. They have lots of wrist issues, lots of back issues. Do you think, the workout and everything has helped you with that as well?
Yeah, and interestingly enough, I'm headed for back surgery in a week, but it's a procedure from a martial arts injury I had about 20 years ago, and I fractured a vertebrae, and now it's coming back to haunt me with a lot of pain and sciatica and that kind of thing. So I'm going to get a corrective procedure, but I've never had. Matter of fact, I sit down, and it feels better to sit down than it does to stand up and walk around. Sitting was never a problem. Never had a hand problem. Never had a shoulder problem. Never had a neck problem. I don't know if that's luck, because I've heard stories about a lot of artists that have had problems. George Perez was famous for his back problems. Rest in peace. So there's a lot of those stories that I've heard. I don't know if it's because of the business or maybe it's the person themselves. And the exercise keeps me away from any severe long-term illnesses. I've had a great life of health. I can't deny it. Whether that's genetics or if it's because of being healthy, being an exerciser, I don't know. But right now, I can't go without some exercise the 3, 4, 5 times a week. I love it.
So it's just in the morning, you get up and
in the morning, yep.
Just get to it?
Yep. Yeah, and I have a trainer, and I go 2, 3 times a week. And then I go on my own twice a week for cardiovascular. And it's a habit. It's a hobby and a habit. And I joke about the vanity part of it. It's nice to hear people say, "Wow, you don't look your age." Okay, I accept that. Thank you. I appreciate that. Then I have a family. I've got 3 gigantic Gavone sons that are strong as oxes, and they wouldn't let me get fat. Trust me.
Now, you said you had an accident with martial arts. What were you practicing? What was your
jiu-jitsu? It was
nice.
jiu-jitsu.
Like Brazilian jiu-jitsu, or
no, just plain old jiu-jitsu. And I got clotheslined. Got clotheslined by a very large priest.
Beautiful.
And
very New York.
Yeah, it landed on the back of my shoulders and my neck, and my knees touched the mat behind me and cracked the vertebrae. And over the course of time, the aging and the gravity has caused the sciatic nerve to pinch, and it's painful. And it's time to fix it with a small procedure, and that'll be done next week.
Well, we'll be praying for you out here, and I think a lot
I
of
appreciate that. No prayers needed. No prayers needed. It's going to be done well. Technology has advanced.
Absolutely. Now, what's also advanced is a lot of people have gone on to different things. Now you're doing crowdfunding, but you just had a tremendous amount of loyalty to Marvel Comics for so many years.
Mm-hmm.
What is it, like a 35-year run initially before you even kind of stepped away? In that time, you had the Image 7 move over, start new things up there. You were a big as artist as a lot of those guys. Were you ever tempted to maybe kind of step away from Marvel, or were you just that loyal to the company?
A little bit of both. I was offered the chance by the Image guys to go work with them. And I, at the time, was working on X-Men, and I thought better of it, thinking the X-Men was the top-selling book in the industry, and I was happy with that. I don't know how it would have worked out. I just know I'm at a point now where I'm very happy with the way my career has worked out, so I can't second guess it. I'm at a point very happy with my family life and with the work life, so I can't second guess it. If I had gone to Image, who knows? And even the step away briefly to DC was fun. I got a chance to do Batman and Superman, who I never would have considered doing earlier in my career. Got a chance to do it briefly, and then got a chance to go back to do Spider-Man again with Marvel. Yeah, it's in my blood. It's like it's almost much like a sibling is what I call Peter Parker, because when I was a kid, my father pointed out where Peter Parker lived and pointed to a building as we went past it. That meant a lot to me, and it's part of my life, not just on a professional basis, but a personal basis, and I love it. It's a great conversation piece.
Absolutely. I mean, 35 years is no joke, and obviously you're back with Marvel.
Yeah, but it's 35, and take away the 5 with DC, and now the last 7. I'm very proud of the longevity of overall, but yeah, with Marvel. Now we'll see if they give me a golden watch when I leave.
I think they'll give you more than that. You've earned more than that.
They'll give me a boot in the ass and an open door. That's what they'll say.
Maybe. Now, obviously, you basically draw on every character at Marvel at this point. But I think most people really associate with the X-Men, with Spider-Man, and Wolverine. Is there something about X-Men and Spider-Man, besides being maybe the flagship characters and titles, that always drew you there? Was it something that started out when you were a kid?
I don't know if it was because of me or if I thought of that. The titles I worked on at the time were great selling titles, and they became top selling titles. X-Men, Chris Claremont was at his best at that point, and we had a good run. Spider-Man, I had a great run with several writers, and Straczynski. Listen, Straczynski, and I apologize to all the Spider-Man writers I've worked with. That Straczynski run is as good as any, competing even with Stan Lee and John Romita Sr. That was as good as it gets, and I'm very proud of that. I don't know what got me to be fortunate enough to work on these great titles, but I'm very happy that it worked out that way, especially the X-Men, because John Burns said it's going to burn you out. Pardon the pun. He said it's a group book that will knock you on your ass if you're not ready for it. I lasted a couple of tours in it, 4 years each or whatever it was, and it was a great experience, and it was a lot of fun to do. I don't know if I could do it again as quickly as I did back then, because it's such a complex title and there's so much story to it now. I don't know. I'd like to take a chance at it. However, if I had to choose what to go back to of the characters I've drawn, it would be Daredevil.
Daredevil.
Yeah, my favorite character to draw out of any character in the industry.
He's like that one character at Marvel, maybe he's never going to be Spider-Man and anything like that, but there's almost no bad Daredevil runs. It feels like everybody that jumps on Daredevil does like the best work of their life.
I wouldn't disagree with you. Some of the great runs with Frank and Mazzucchelli and Anisenti and myself, and then Frank and myself, the character lends itself towards very deep thought and moody stuff. And there's so many great arcs, and I'm very proud of the ones we did. But I would love to do that character again. If I could put a gun in Frank's mouth and make him work with me again, that would be fun. And if not, I'll go talk to Anisenti and see what she's doing.
So is Man Without Fear, do you think that's the best story you've ever illustrated?
If I had to choose an arc that is my favorite of anything I've done, yeah, overall, top to bottom, I'd say that was it. And again, how much did I rely on Frank and Al Williamson?
Absolutely.
That is, and I've probably signed that run, since there are 5 of them. I probably signed that run more than, if not close to the Spider-Man books that I signed. That run it's it's ever present at shows, and I'm very proud of it. Very proud of it.
For me, it's Man Without Fear or it's Enemy of the State, as far as my favorite.
I don't know.
John
I think
Romita Jr. Marvel book.
I think that's in there in the equation. But that run with Straczynski on Spider-Man, I would stand on a mountain in the clouds and say that's as good as it gets, especially because of the horror of the 9/11 event and the attack, that disgusting attack on the country, and then we managed to do something in reverence to it. The superheroes, the cops, firemen, the military, and so on. Very, very proud of that, and that brings that arc with JMS and me and up to a level with Scott. I think that's a level that's as good as any other previous, with the exception of maybe Stan and Romita Sr. and maybe Stan and Steve Ditko. Competitive with that stuff. I'm very proud of it.
As well, you should be. There's phenomenal stuff there. No, I know you've had the 2 runs on X-Men, first with Chris Claremont, X-Men Legend, and then Scott Lobdell, who had the very unenviable position of kind of coming in almost unannounced as the replacement writer as something bad happened. Now, I've read that you preferred working with Scott a little bit more because you had more input on the storytelling. Was that what it was?
That is correct. The product, I don't think, suffered. The book was just crazy. The characters were just crazy loved. But Scott did allow me some input. Yeah, Chris was in control because I was a very inexperienced artist. And he said it, I gotta take care of this. You're not as experienced as I'd like you to be. But Scott allowed me some input, and I was very proud of that.
So Scott is one of the better people you've worked up. He's up there with like a Mark Millar?
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. Yes, he is. And he's probably going to spit at me when he sees me at a convention. That run on X-Men was great stuff. And he allowed me a lot of room to play. And it came out very well. And that was one of the top runs. That book, it was selling stupid amounts at the time. And I was very proud of that. And that's one of the reasons I didn't want to leave to go to Image.
You having too much fun?
I was having too much fun. Yeah.
can't get better than that. Now, my buddy Doc, he's on the channel quite a bit. He's an enormous X-Men fan. He's like an X-Men historian. And he says the Scott Lobdell run is amongst the 5 best X-Men runs of all time, but people hold it against them that it's not Chris Claremont, but he thinks it's right up there with.
Chris gets the advantage of being the initiator of the new X-Men, so to speak, and he should take great pride in that. The artist Dave Cockrum really redesigned those characters, and it's great. And Wolverine became one of the top characters, if not the top character in the industry, when it became a mutant. It's great stuff. Colossus and the Elf. I mean, come on, this is great stuff. So they were redesigned, and it was great. Cockrum does not get the credit he deserves. God bless him.
And obviously, your father was the original illustrator or the designer for the Wolverine character. Right. And it stands out as something of a legendary achievement in his career. Is there a character that you created or co-created that really stands out as your favorite creation?
Oh, man, nothing seems to come up to par with something like Wolverine, or if I compared Typhoid Mary to Wolverine, I get laughed at. Or the Dazzler, I get laughed at. Listen, I'm the butt of jokes because of Dazzler. But I say second level B- characters I've created. Shotgun I'm proud of, and that became nothing. A Blackheart I'm very proud of. The redesign of Mephisto, but there's never anything that's ever been. Somebody says Hobgoblin is a major creation. I ripped off Green Goblin. It was a complete derivation of the Green Goblin. So I have some that I'm proud of, but nothing that I can stand on and announce as great characters.
Yeah, it's tough when Wolverine's in there and you've got like a Spider-Man, Batman, Superman level creation that you get to put your stamp on as.
Sentry, I'm proud of Sentry. I think that's a pretty good character. Some of the characters, the villains in the Spider-Man run, Straczynski, Ezekiel. There's a couple of characters I got lucky with. But listen, Typhoid Mary was a great character, and Ascenti made her a great character. The Dazzler becomes a great character because of becoming a mutant. Chris Claremont turned her into a better character. So other than some embarrassing characters like the twin midget scientists in the first book of Spider-Man that I ever did, I'm not too ashamed of anything. Although my robot, the gigantic robot that was pink, I make a joke out of it too. But I'm not ashamed as much as I seem to not quite reach that level of Wolverine, Punisher, that kind of thing.
Sentry just obviously made his debut in the MCU on
Yes,
Thunderbolts.
Very proud of that.
You're very proud of that.
And if you blink at the end of the film, you'll miss my name. So, yes, I'm very proud of that.
There's a lot of controversy about the way that Marvel goes out there and credits people with the creations of things that end up in the MCU. Do you think they should do a better job, or
sure, hand out checks? They should hand out checks. Are you kidding me? Big time whopping checks. Are you listening, Marvel? Come on, I got a mortgage to pay.
Well, and DC is certainly. Warner Brothers, I guess, has a better reputation where things that you've created end up, they seem to be a little bit more generous with the thanks when it comes to the payouts.
I'm not the one. I'm not one to make noise about that. There's precedents that have been set. The Jack Kirby family, the artists that have created visuals, 90% of the work when a writer hands a name to a character, to a writer, an artist. Sorry. So there's ways of batting that around. If you sit at a bar long enough and you got nothing to talk about, you can discuss that. Did Jack Kirby deserve every penny? Yes, he deserved every penny. John Romita Sr. deserves every penny the settlement will be when it comes, because they did the majority of the work. Stan Lee created names, great names, but 90% of the work is done by the artist. It's always been that way. It always will be that way. And Marvel should stand on a mountain and applaud in a better way the creators.
I 100% agree with you.
Now, listen, I hate to do this to you, but I am about to run to the Heroes Convention in North Carolina, and I'm a little bit behind schedule, and I don't mean to do this to you, but can we do more of this at a later time? You want to do it again?
Yeah, absolutely. We can talk about the Philippines.
We'll talk about the Philippines. Yeah, I would love to see the Philippines. Everybody's my height in the Philippines. I like that.
Absolutely. Well, it was great having you here on the channel, John. Really appreciate it. Congratulations on the success of Psychic Save and working with Mark Millar again. And I cannot wait to finish this conversation.
I appreciate that. I'm sorry to do this to you, but I realized all of a sudden it's been 45 minutes. It's easy to talk for 45 minutes with this in this genre and this kind of conversation. Thank you very much for having me, and I apologize for cutting it short. I don't know how much more we can get in, but let me know when you want to talk. Just email me, and we'll set up another. Go through Sarah if you want. We'll set up another one.
Sounds good.
All right. I appreciate it, boss. And contact me anytime you're ready.